Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Idea to Value podcast. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn, and I'm thrilled to have with me today Robin Gaster. He is the founder of Incumetrics and author of Behemoth, Amazon Rising. So today, as you can probably guess from the title of the book, we're going to be talking about one of the world's most prominent innovation-based companies, Amazon. Robin, it's wonderful having you here today.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the Idea to Value podcast, where in every episode we highlight the latest insights into creativity and innovation from experts around the world. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn. I care about the evidence behind what makes ideas happen, and I've already helped thousands of people just like you through my unique insights into recent scientific findings of how creativity works. I also show you how to turbocharge innovation programs so they finally deliver on the value and ideas you've been struggling to execute. Get your free training on how creativity can be improved by registering now at www.ideatovalue.com. Now let's get on with today's episode. So for people who don't know about you, could you just give us a bit of a background as to where you got started and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. I'm an immigrant. I came to America to do a PhD, which I did at Berkeley. Then I taught for a while, and then I took a couple of jobs at the IMF and with Congress. And then many, many years ago, I started my own consulting business focused on innovation. And that's really what I work on. I work on innovation and the intersection of technology, politics, and economics. And that has led me through a long and winding path to here, to Amazon, which I think is right at that intersection right now. Yeah, I fully believe that Amazon is the most important business story of our time, and that it is the most important innovation company of our time. And my friends who do hardware innovation just pull their hair out when I say that. They think that what Amazon does is just footle around at the edges, but they could not be more wrong.
So let's dive right into that. What, in your view, is innovation at Amazon, and what sort of
is innovation?
having on the world?
I think the first thing to understand is that innovation and invention are different things. Invention is creating something new. It's creating a new technology or a new solution or something that hasn't been seen before. And innovation is the fuel of innovation, but it's not innovation. Innovation is about taking inventions and making them scale, making them work, bringing them to mass markets. So innovations that matter are ones that change our lives. Many inventions never get to that point. So I'm focused on innovation. I'm focused on the issues and questions of scale. You know, how do you get from being a tiny, tiny online bookstore to a $400 billion company that added $1 billion of revenue last year? It's utterly astounding. So to me, they are the innovation story of our time because they have brought to us so many important game-changing innovations from the start of the online bookstore through things like the Kindle, through AWS, one-click marketing. I mean, even simple things, which, you know, are really technically not difficult at all, right? So when you go to buy something online, your typical, I'm prepared to bet that you bet pretty heavily that you follow the typical path. You think of something you want, you probably start on Amazon because most people start there. You do a search, the search is pretty good. It finds a bunch of things that you might be interested in. You look at them and you scan the reviews, right? And that scanning of the reviews is revolutionary. 20 years ago, there weren't reviews. Amazon had to fight the publishers in the book business to put reviews online because they included negative reviews. But they're gold dust. They drive Amazon forward because it has all the reviews, right? So it's a simple thing, not terribly technically difficult, a different vision of how people would get information, and totally transformative.
I mean, that's one wonderful example of where they started out. I think a lot of people know about Amazon how it is today, but they're probably not aware of the journey that it's been on, especially in the early years where it wasn't yet this behemoth that it is now. So can you just give us sort of the Cliff Notes version of where it started?
I think there's some important turning points that are, and I think I'll focus on maybe 4 sort of key turning points. One is the decision in the around 2000 to create a marketplace, not just a retailer. So this too is revolutionary. It's like Sears calling up Macy's and saying, hey, you want some space on our floor? Come right in, no problem. We'll take 15% of your sales and you can be right there. There have been marketplaces for thousands of years. You know, I love visiting souks. They are incredible places, but they're nothing like this. This is like a department store saying, competitors, fine, bring them. So today, Amazon, as a result of that decision, and that decision was totally unusual. Nobody was doing that. Nobody did that at the time. So where's that led Amazon? So now Amazon is this enormous retail marketplace. Amazon itself has about 20 million items for sale, but it also has 6 million sellers, independent sellers on its marketplace. And those people have almost 500 million items for sale. So Amazon became the everything store because it gave up the idea of being the everything store itself. It was a very judo sort of thing to do. So that's one example, and one very important example, because it created for Amazon an unbeatable catalog. You can find everything. You don't need to go anywhere else. So that item 1. Item 2, a little bit later on, it created its Prime program, Prime membership. I don't know if you're a Prime member, but in the US, there are 125 million households, and there are 140 million Prime members. This is astonishing. This is absolutely astonishing. And it started from almost nothing. Even as late as 2010, there were only about 10 million Prime members. Prime members get free shipping, getting close to 1-day shipping now. They get incredible entertainment. They get trust. And you know, when you go off the Amazon platform, the level of trust does decline. You don't quite know what you're getting. So Prime, if the marketplace was what glued the sellers to Amazon, Prime is what glues customers to Amazon. It's Amazon's real superpower, because if it has the customers, everyone has to come through Amazon, and that's what they do. So
before we go on to the next one, I love the story of Prime as well, because it's one of these counterintuitive innovation stories where at the time when it came out, a lot of financial analysts were very confused about why a company would effectively give up revenue. At the time, 2-day shipping was extremely expensive for a logistics-based company, and they were effectively giving this away for free. So what was the sort of thinking behind that?
I think the thinking was that, yes, they might lose money on it, but they could always control how much money. You know, if it turned out to be disastrously expensive, they would just pull back, or they would charge more. And the thinking behind it was exactly what I said, because once you are a Prime member, you're not going elsewhere. It's just, the reality is you paid your $120 for the year, you get free shipping, you think of it as free. That is not beatable, right? There's no offer. I mean, Walmart can't actually pay you to take things. That doesn't really compute. So better than free is really difficult. And then you have all the entertainment. You know, Bezos famously said that Amazon is the only company that's figured out how to use Golden Globes to sell sneakers. And, you know, he's right. It does, because it keeps you in the ecosystem. And that does take us to the third piece, which I think is another place where, is it so brilliant, so, you know, so inventive? Not terribly, but that's logistics, right? So again, about 2000, 2001, Amazon's logistics system was in meltdown. They were growing too fast. They couldn't handle it. All right. So now you get to be CEO for a moment, right? Your guys come to you and say, we can't handle this. We can't handle this. Our logistics system is in meltdown. What do we do? And if you're CEO at that moment and you've been to business school, you know what to do. You outsource, right? You call up UPS and say, help. We need your help. Build us a logistics system. We'll use yours. We'll just send it to you. But Amazon didn't do that. Instead, they spent 20 years and untold billions of dollars to build the best logistics system for e-commerce in America. Right? It is far better than UPS or FedEx or Walmart or any of their competitors. They can deliver in a day at a reasonable price. The rest of them can't because they're not tuned for that. You know, you want to send something overnight by FedEx, that's no joke. That's expensive. So what it did with the logistics system was to take a disadvantage and create an overwhelmingly important moat around the business. That and then to do the last thing, the sort of next thing that Amazon learned to do, and this is the last of those 4 innovations, which is Amazon Web Services, right? AWS is the world's leading cloud computing provider. Where did it come from? It came from Amazon's internal systems collapsing. Again, they couldn't handle this. They had a unitary code base, which meant that anytime they touched the thing, it affected everything. Incredibly dangerous, millions and millions of lines of code. And then suddenly they're also trying to replicate this to manage e-commerce for Borders and for Toys R Us, who had both outsourced their e-commerce to Amazon, right? You can see the parallels here. Amazon decided not to outsource and built dominance. Toys R Us and Borders are no more. You know, the lesson is clear. Anyway, so they built instead of traditional IT, they built a new system. It had really 2 elements. One, it was completely modular. It's like Lego pieces. You stuck them together in different combinations based on sort of certain core functionalities: storage, data management, compute, and connection. And the second thing was that they did it in the cloud, not in the server, not on the local server. And, you know, they were fortunate. The high-speed internet came at the right time. Storage costs collapsed at the right time. Things went well for them. But pretty much as soon as Amazon had figured out how to do this, they started selling it to other people. And AWS quickly became a very big business because Amazon was solving problems that everybody had. I mean, they weren't the only ones with a big, outdated legacy IT system that was strangling them. So they learned how to take what they make for their own purposes and sell it. And that's what they do with logistics, right? They provide the logistics for third-party sellers. There are positives and negatives to that. Amazon is increasingly forcing those sellers into that program. But it's not a terrible thing for the sellers because Amazon takes care of everything. And for a not, at this point, not an exorbitant price, I think Amazon breaks even on that. So there you have 4 key sets of innovations, none of them in particular. Well, AWS, I guess, is more technical than the rest. But, you know, was it, you know, earth-shaking in the sort of traditional invention sense, like the steam engine or something like that? No. But as a business innovation, these were incredible. And Amazon got to scale them so quickly, which I think is sort of their secret one of their key secrets is to take these innovations, encourage people to innovate, and then figure out how to grow them to enormous size very quickly.
Speaking of secrets, Amazon is quite renowned for keeping certain things very close to its chest. And so I'm just wondering, where do you get these insights into one of the world's biggest companies, but one that's very choosy about what to allow the public access to?
I don't think it's choosy. I think it's totally secretive. It fits their culture, which in my book I have explained is really quite different than most any other company I've ever looked at. They are the Jesuits of our time. They do not care about compliance. They don't want to be a big company where everyone goes along. They demand commitment. And this explains why Amazon has such a sort of bifurcated reputation, right? That Amazon does not care that a lot of people don't fit. It's like the Jesuits and the Marines, right? You recruit a lot of people to the Marines and you have a high fail rate. But the ones who stay are totally committed, and they are Marines. And that's the story at Amazon. So where do my insights come from? Well, I read a lot. I talk to a lot of people, many of whom do not wish to be quoted for obvious reasons. You know, I'm a kind of a numbers guy. I like numbers, and the numbers are out there. You just have to be really persistent in digging them up and understanding them, giving them context. You know, one of the difficulties of understanding Amazon now is that it is such a far-flung enterprise. You know, where do the satellites fit in, or the healthcare, or the finance, or the entertainment? You know, how do you fit all this stuff into a concept that allows you to understand what is fully going on? And I think it's challenging, but just about doable still. In 5 years, possibly not.
So let's speak about some of those secrets.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, renowned as being at certain points the richest man in the world, quite often nowadays. But what is there around either the finances or the operations of this business that most people probably don't realize or don't appreciate?
Well, they probably don't realize that Amazon loses an absolute packet on its own retail business. So I'm going to use 2019 numbers because they were not COVID numbers. So Amazon made $14 billion in profit in 2019, of which AWS was $9 billion. So it would appear, and the press thinks, and indeed AWS thinks, that they account for 60% of Amazon's profits. And if you just cut them off, maybe Amazon would be, you know, cut back a bit. But this is a misunderstanding, because there are a number of very profitable segments at Amazon. So AWS makes $9 billion. The marketplace, which is commissions from retailers, makes 20 odd billion. Advertising sold to retailers makes another 10 billion. Prime makes another 10 billion, right? So there are all these different segments. Together, the profitable segments of Amazon make 46 billion in 2019. Much of that is submerged by the red ink over at retail. So but if you look at it like that, then you can say, well, AWS is actually only 9 billion of the 45 billion in profitable segments. So it's kind of 20% of Amazon, not 60% of Amazon.
So I'm just doing the mental math, and it seems like you're saying the main Amazon selling stuff business is making a loss of around 20 to 30 billion dollars.
32 billion in 2019. And why would this be? This seems completely ridiculous, doesn't it? I mean, on the face of it, it seems ridiculous. Well, there are a couple of reasons. One, delivery is really expensive. You know, if they sell you a packet of batteries, I can guarantee that they've lost money on that by the time it reaches your front door. There is no way that it can be delivered to you and cost you $4 and they haven't lost a lot of money on it. So one problem is delivery. A second problem is this. So imagine again that you are in charge of the supply chain for let's say, electronic cables, all right? That's fine. And you learn how to manage the supply chain. You go to China, you figure out where to buy these things. You look for competitive bids, you bring them back, you figure out a manufacturer who can deliver on time, all this stuff. It's quite complicated, right? Oh, but Amazon has 20 million of those. 20 million of those problems to solve. And you can imagine that some of them are fairly easy to solve and others are difficult. And the difficult ones, they lose a lot of money. The third thing is that Amazon is a relentless growth machine. Their stock price and their whole image is that they grow 20, 25% a year. And so they have been looking for ways to grow retail 20 to 25%, grow revenues. Well, it's easy to grow revenues if you want to lose money. No, you just offer things below the cost that you need to offer them and people will buy them. So I think the failure on the profit side is directly related to the demand to grow on the top side. But it also means that what Amazon is doing is really predatory pricing. You know, it's pricing below cost because it's losing money. And I think that could be the one place that Amazon is vulnerable to antitrust investigation.
I mean, going back into Amazon's history before it became profitable, and I don't know exactly which year that was, Jeff Bezos was one of the most vocal proponents in the world of startups, even startups of that size, for saying we want to just keep investing in the company.
Yes.
And investing in innovation, and that's why profit isn't our motive at the moment.
That's right.
Obviously, that's probably changed recently, but is that really the ethos of the company, or is that maybe a bit of clever accounting?
So the ethos of the company is fascinating. The Amazon's corporate culture is absolutely fascinating. They are, by their own admission, entirely obsessive. They are obsessed by one thing, and that is serving the customer. And they have 14 leadership principles that they use to guide action. But they're all there really in service of that one prime directive. You know, the prime directive at Amazon is serve the customer, whatever it takes, and regardless of consequences. And this, I think, is where we get to the sort of problem with Amazon, if you like, that it was okay when Amazon was a small bookstore. It was okay when Amazon was a big bookstore. I mean, the publishers have taken it in the nuts. It's been a difficult couple of decades for them. They are now married to a monster that eats them yearly, you know, a little bit more every year. And they now have no escape because Amazon is the main distribution network. So they're stuck. But now Amazon is huge. Now Amazon has 1.2 million employees. Now Amazon is 40% of the US e-commerce market, and that market has grown rapidly in the last year and obviously is about to enter its acceleration phase. So now Amazon's previous model of we are going to focus and we're going to do what we do and we don't care about the consequences. Don't care about the consequences for our workers, for our sellers, for our vendors, for our partners, our communities. We don't care about any of that. We are going to focus on the customer. And now they're too big for that. It's not acceptable anymore. You know, it's sort of, I have this sort of image of you know, a road laying crew where they're laying pipes and they're laying e-commerce pipes. And first they're kind of this little small crew working on a side street. And then they get to Main Street and they're still like totally obsessed with laying this pipe. And now they're driving down every main street in America, and the you know, the pavement is going everywhere and the cars are being knocked over, and you know, old ladies are being crushed, and they're still focused on their pipe. They're just not prepared to accept that these other things are relevant. And you can see certain nods towards the reality that this can't continue. You know, Bezos recently announced that they want to become the best employee company in America. It's easy to announce that. I await the data.
I think it's probably very important to announce that, because some of the news stories we've seen, especially over the last year with the COVID pandemic and
Yeah.
the increase in business, but even before then, of stories of how the employees need to behave on their jobs, or things they're allowed to do and not allowed to do, have been quite often horrific.
They have been horrific. And it's not even, I mean, the fact that they're not allowed to sit down and they're not allowed to talk to each other and they're not allowed to bring cell phones on, and that is one thing. But then there's the actual work itself in the warehouses. Have you ever been to one of the Amazon warehouses? You should go. It is astounding. You know, William Gibson said, the future is all around us. It's just unevenly distributed. Well, it's piled up over in the warehouses because you can see the future there. And it's a future where humans are robots. It's clear that Amazon is moving as fast as it possibly can to an automated warehouse. That's what it wants. And in the meantime, it will just hope that it can get humans to comply with being robots to the maximum extent possible, and it will extract every last ounce of effort that it can. And this is challenging for all of us because they pay well, you know, by American standards. They offer good healthcare benefits. They offer as much work as you can do. For unskilled people, this is, you know, 15, 16, 17 bucks an hour as opposed to $8, $9 an hour. But Amazon doesn't tell us how long they last, what the turnover rate is, what the real injury rate is, what long-term consequences there are. Nothing. Amazon tells us nothing. And so, and I guess what I would say is, if those numbers were good, Amazon would tell us. If it suited their purpose, we would know what the turnover rate is in those warehouses. But Amazon doesn't tell us. So you can draw your own conclusions.
I think one of my big questions, though, is Amazon is such a beautiful example of a company that everyone agrees is innovative, and a pioneer, and really a company that continues to innovate and continues to invest in innovation, and has done throughout its entire lifetime. So do the ends justify the means? If Jeff Bezos is apparently not the nicest person in the world to work with, and if there's a certain sort of leadership culture of get on with it or get out, and there's people peeing in bottles, is that the price we have to pay for relentless innovation?
It's such a good question, and I'm not entirely sure I have an answer. You know, the innovation culture at Amazon is quite unique. It has different facets. So we've talked a bit about the culture and the mindset, but there is also structure. So they have figured out how to use small teams, and they figured this out in a way that other companies haven't, to create a kind of semi-chaotic ferment of new ideas being thrown up and teams being cohered around them, and then they grow and they move on to other things. It's like this constant Brownian movement of molecules inside Amazon, which form into innovative spikes, if you like. And this is a remarkable thing, to be able to keep the actual organization going while you're doing this. It is like building airliners in mid-flight, right? It's not easy. So there is structure. They have process innovations around what they do that I found fascinating and useful myself. You know, they don't use PowerPoints. They believe that all the details get hidden between the bullets, and I think they're right. And they have a great innovation, which is that their meetings are organized around 6-page documents. 6 pages long enough to put everything in it, not too long that people won't read it. But people still don't read it, right? I mean, I don't know how many meetings you attend, but But I can tell you the meetings I go to, nobody has read the documents. Nobody has time, right? So what does Amazon do? They have a 30-minute silent reading period at the beginning of the meeting. Everyone sits there and they mark up the documents, and then they start talking. And I imagine it is highly productive, right? You can imagine all those useless meetings you have attended where people are shooting off their mouths about stuff they clearly haven't read. And, this is a way to be really focused and efficient, and one should respect that. And of course, now Amazon has scale. So, so last year they could spend $500 million on their gaming studio, which produced 2 catastrophically disastrous games and has not had a single game actually really make it to market. They don't care. They got the money. So, and just wait till they get into healthcare, which is where they're going next. That is going to be big.
Can you give us a little preview about what they might be doing in healthcare?
Yeah, I think they're going to eat healthcare from below. If you think about healthcare, right now there's a pretty sharp division between formal healthcare and kind of wellness, fitness, tracking, all this kind of stuff that goes on below. And I think Amazon will blow that up over the next 10 years. I think that the key to this is that they will build their own primary care, which they're already doing, their own primary care services. But the rest of it is to bring diagnostics and chronic disease tracking into the home. And they'll do that through Alexa. Alexa will finally have a use case that matters, as opposed to, telling you the news. Alexa will be your gateway into healthcare. I'm sure of it. And a good one. Instead of trying to find a freaking doctor to tell you something, you just ask Alexa, and Alexa will ask you some questions. And if you need a doctor, Alexa will find you one. And will track what you do. You will track your sleep and track whatever activity you want it to track. It's an entirely revolutionary place. And it's where a lot of the expensive healthcare is actually really located, in chronic diseases. Getting those managed properly would make a big difference. And I think Amazon can see that.
A dream for some and maybe a nightmare for others.
Exactly. Possibly, in fact, there's both.
Yeah.
Both, right? It is. How much do you trust Amazon? Ugh, not much. On the other hand, how much do you like your current healthcare system? Not that much either. So Amazon has a light side and a dark side, and every one of us gets to decide where that balance particularly sits.
Absolutely. Robin, it's been wonderful speaking with you. If people want to find out more about the book, your work, and the sort of insights you have, what's the best place they can go to find out more?
Well, they can find out about it at robingaster.com or at my consulting website at incumetrics.com. And of course, Behemoth, Amazon Rising, is available at bookstores everywhere, including Amazon.
Perfect. I'll make sure to get all of those links down in the description below. Robin, it's been wonderful speaking with you, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
That'd be great. Thanks very much, Nick.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment about what you thought and what you'd like to see more about. If you want to take your creativity and innovation capabilities to the next level, then invest in yourself with the premium training only available at ideatovalue.com. These exclusive training modules have all been put together by me, Nick Skillicorn, and have been used by thousands of artists, innovation leaders, and CEOs to become better at understanding the source of their creativity and executing on their innovation ambitions. And there is no risk to you, as they're backed by our money-back guarantee. Now, don't forget to go out there and make your ideas a reality. See you again soon.